Imagine this. You wake up alone in the wilderness 10,000 years ago, and you already know with total certainty that no one is coming back for you. Your tribe left at dawn, not by accident. They walked away and didn't look back because you broke a rule that mattered, and this was a punishment. No trial, no prison, just distance. You have water, you have a blade of flint. You are, by every physical measure, still perfectly capable of surviving the night, and yet something inside your chest feels like it's collapsing, a pressure that has nothing to do with hunger or cold. It feels, strangely, like dying. Here's the mystery we need to solve. Why would the human brain treat being alone as a life-threatening emergency even when nothing is physically attacking you? Why does isolation hurt in a way that feels almost identical to a wound? The answer is stranger, older, and far more urgent than loneliness is sad. For most of human history, being cut off from your group wasn't an emotional inconvenience. It was, quite literally, one of the deadliest things that could happen to you, and the ways ancient humans fought back against it shaped nearly everything about who we became. Let's start with the part that should unsettle you immediately. Scientists studying the human brain with imaging scanners made a discovery that initially seemed impossible. When someone experiences social rejection, being excluded, ignored, cast out, the exact same brain regions light up as when someone experiences actual physical pain. Not a similar region, the same one. Researchers proved this using a simple ball-tossing game, where a person is gradually frozen out and ignored by two other players. No insult was spoken, nothing was taken, and yet participants' brains reacted as though they'd been physically struck. But here's where things get strange. Why would evolution wire us this way? Pain exists for a reason. It stops your hand from staying on a hot stove. So what exactly was loneliness supposed to be protecting us from? The real surprise is this. For nearly the entire span of human existence, a person alone was a person about to die. Think about what an individual human actually is. Stripped of the group, no claws, no thick fur, no real speed, slower than almost every predator hunting us. Our one true advantage was never the individual body. It was the collective, cooperative hunting, shared food, someone to keep watch while you slept, someone to carry you if you broke a leg. Remove the group and you didn't just lose companionship, you lost your entire survival system in one move. So the brain did something ruthlessly logical. It treated abandonment exactly the way it treated a broken bone, as an emergency requiring your full attention right now or you die. That single fact rewrites everything that follows, because if isolation was genuinely a death sentence, then the punishment for breaking the group's trust didn't need to be violence at all. It just needed to be distance. Across wildly different ancient cultures separated by oceans and thousands of years, the ultimate punishment kept converging on the exact same idea. In ancient Greece, citizens could vote to banish a person from the city for 10 years, a fate treated as almost as severe as execution. In early Norse society, a person could be declared an outlaw, stripped of the community's protection entirely, meaning anyone could kill them without consequence. Entire cultures, independently, landed on the same brutal logic. To remove someone from the tribe was, in practical terms, to remove their right to keep living. Now here's the twist that should genuinely change how you think about ancient humans. If isolation was this dangerous, evolution wouldn't just punish it. It would have built elaborate defenses to prevent it from ever happening in the first place. And it did. Some of them are hiding in plain sight, inside things you already do every single day. Consider language itself. There's a theory, championed by anthropologist Robin Dunbar, that human speech didn't evolve primarily to describe the world. It evolved to replace something primates had been doing for millions of years to maintain social bonds, picking through each other's fur for hours, not because they're removing that many bugs, but because touch is glue. It says, quietly, you belong here. But as human groups grew larger, you simply couldn't groom everyone individually anymore. So, the theory goes, we evolved something that could bond an entire group at once without ever touching a single hand. Gossip. That thing you might feel a little embarrassed about, catching up on who's doing what, who said what to whom, may actually be one of the oldest survival tools our species ever built. Every conversation about other people is, underneath the surface, a tiny reassurance that you're still wired into the network, still known, still watched over. But talking wasn't the only defense. Around the fire, at night, ancient communities did something researchers only recently started studying seriously. During the day, conversation among hunter-gatherer groups tends to be practical, complaints, logistics, arguments about resources. But once the sun goes down and the fire is lit, something shifts. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies, whose lifestyles closely mirror our ancient ancestors, found that nighttime firelit conversation overwhelmingly turned towards storytelling, myth, humor, and shared memory. The fire wasn't just for warmth or protection from predators. It appears to have been a nightly ritual for restitching the group back together, emotionally, after a day spent scattered and working. Imagine that. Every single night, for hundreds of thousands of years, before sleep made everyone vulnerable and alone in their own heads, ancient humans deliberately gathered in a circle and told each other stories, not for entertainment first, for survival. A reminder, repeated nightly like a heartbeat, you still belong to us. But here's where the story takes a genuinely unexpected turn, because loneliness didn't just threaten the healthy, it threatened, most dangerously, the vulnerable. And the way ancient humans responded to that threat is one of the most quietly moving discoveries in all of archaeology. In a cave in northern Iraq called Shanidar, archaeologists uncovered the skeleton of a Neanderthal man who lived roughly 45,000 years ago. What they found should not have been possible according to everything scientists used to assume about primitive humans. This man was missing most of one arm, amputated long before death. He was blind or close to it in one eye, and showed signs of a degenerative condition that would have made walking and chewing genuinely difficult. By every cold calculation of survival, he should have died young, abandoned, unable to keep up with a group constantly on the move. He didn't. He lived for years, possibly decades after his injuries, which means for that entire time, someone had to feed him. Someone had to slow the group's pace for him. Someone had to choose again and again not to leave him behind, even when it would have been strategically easier. That is not the behavior of a species too primitive to feel loneliness. That is a species that understood on some deep instinctive level that letting someone fall into isolation was itself a kind of death sentence, and actively refused to let it happen. So what did ancient people do when isolation was unavoidable? When a hunter got separated during a storm, or a traveler had to cross dangerous grounds completely alone? This is where things get almost eerie, because the solution wasn't purely practical, it was psychological. Across numerous ancient cultures, from small carved figures tucked into travel bags to ancestor charms worn against the skin, people carried physical objects meant to represent connection itself, not just tools, symbols, a piece of home, a token of family, sometimes a carved likeness of an ancestor, brought along specifically so that even in complete physical isolation, a person could feel accompanied. Many ancient belief systems held that ancestors, spirits, or gods were watching, present, aware, even when no living human was nearby. Was this simply superstition? Maybe. But here's the real surprise buried inside it. Modern psychology has found something remarkably similar today. Studies on solo endurance athletes, isolated Antarctic researchers, and long-term prisoners in solitary confinement show that people who maintain a strong imagined connection to loved ones, picturing conversations, holding on to letters, report significantly less psychological damage from isolation than those who don't. Your brain doesn't always require someone to be physically there. Sometimes it just needs to believe connection still exists somewhere, waiting for you. Ancient humans may not have understood the neuroscience, but they had already discovered, through raw trial and error across thousands of generations, that the antidote to loneliness doesn't always require another body in the room. Sometimes it just requires the felt sense of not being forgotten. Let's pull all of this together now, because underneath every single one of these ancient behaviors is the exact same quiet engine running the whole time. Gossip around the fire, grooming turned into language, communities carrying an injured man dying for years, charms carried by lone travelers into dangerous territory. None of these were separate inventions. They were all the same instinct wearing different costumes, all pointed at the same terrifying threat. Don't let anyone fall out of the circle. And here's the twist that brings us into the present, the one that should genuinely unsettle you. That ancient alarm system, the one built to detect and desperately correct isolation, is still fully installed inside your skull right now, completely unchanged. Your brain still reacts to being ignored, excluded, or forgotten as though your literal survival depends on fixing it immediately, because for nearly the entirety of human history, it did. But the world around that ancient alarm system has transformed almost beyond recognition. For the overwhelming majority of our species' story, true solitude barely existed. You were born into a tribe, raised inside a web of extended family, and died surrounded by people who had known you your entire life. Living completely alone wasn't really an option evolution ever had to plan for. Today, in much of the modern world, living alone isn't rare anymore. It's common and rising every year. We've built a world of single-occupancy apartments, remote work, and digital messages that arrive without a single second of shared presence, all while carrying a brain still running 40,000-year-old software designed for constant physical tribal closeness. That's not a character flaw in modern humans. It's a mismatch between ancient wiring and a genuinely unprecedented environment. It isn't weakness. It isn't failure. It's your oldest survival system doing exactly the job it was built to do, sounding an alarm that once meant the difference between living and dying, and still, deep down, believes it does. So the next time you feel that particular, hollow kind of ache, the one that has nothing to do with hunger or exhaustion, remember what it actually is. It's not proof that something is wrong with you. It's proof that somewhere inside you, a 40,000-year-old instinct is still doing exactly what kept an injured man alive in a cave in Iraq, what pulled exhausted hunters back to the fire every single night, what turned idle gossip into the glue of entire civilizations. It is the oldest voice you carry, and it has only ever been trying to say one thing: go back, find your people. You were never built to survive this alone.